Welcome to Candid Comments. This is your host, Shirley Ray Dean. Today's topic will be Domestic Violence Month. And our guests today are Mary Pritchard, is a past YWCA of Schenectady board member, and Luann Santa Barbara, and she is the shelter coordinator, and you'll hear a lot more from her in a couple of minutes, and Doretha Dickinson. And Doretha, your title is?
The DSS case manager.
DSS case manager. And I'm just thrilled to have you folks right here. Many people don't realize probably that it's Domestic Violence Month, and also that the YWCA Northeast Schenectady has a shelter and really does a lot of work around the issue of domestic violence. Let's talk to Mary. Mary, what is your definition of domestic violence, and why do we have a shelter? Is that something that's been going on forever and ever?
Well, it has been going on forever and ever. In fact, I quite often, because I got in on the ground floor and helped establish the domestic violence shelter, when we started, it was called wife beating, which is now not politically correct to say, but that's what it was.
It is what it is.
And it was called battered women. And so in 1975, I attended the International Year of the Women Conference in downtown Albany at the Convention Center. And there were many workshops and many people from across the state. The International Year of the Woman was sponsored by the United Nations throughout the United States at the time, and also all over the world. And we were having workshops on various issues. One of them was on battered women. I attended that workshop and met, and if I say this name in Schenectady, everyone knows, Helen Carini. Helen Carini at the time was just going to become the president of the YWCA. And she said to me after she spoke, and I agreed with so many comments, she said, and I spoke and she agreed, she said, you're going to be on my board. And I thought, well, okay, we'll give it a try. At the same time, the YW had a new executive director coming in, Kay Hagbaum. Kay Hagbaum had been at the YW for a number of years in other places across the country. And the YW was really changing. It was changing their programming from just physical fitness, flower arrangements, and those kinds of things, to delving into social issues. So when I came on the board, there was just one staff person, and she was in charge of not only battered women, but teen pregnancy. And that's when Kay Hagbaum, Kay Raycroft from the Human Service Planning Council had done a study in Schenectady of the impact that domestic violence, battered women was having within Schenectady. So it was Kay Hagbaum, Kay Raycroft, and myself who went to City Council. Mayor Ducey was the mayor at the time, and Mayor Ducey, and asked for funding to help establish a shelter. The little Mary Hills house was behind the YWCA, down close to the river. And that's what we were going to take and develop it into a shelter for women to come to a safe place. And that's how it started back in 1975.
So tell us a little bit about, I imagine, once people caught on to that, it wasn't hard to keep it going. And tell us about your non-struggle with regard to the family aspect. We're battered women, as they were called then. The family aspect and how that impacted your having the shelter.
Well, I was at home with two young children, and one of the things that they said was the women can come and stay at the YW, but we can't have the children. No, there's a children's shelter about 2 or 3 blocks down, the Parkhurst Children's Shelter, and the children will stay there while the mother stayed at the YW. And all I could think of was, here's a mother struggling to get away, bringing her children with her to safety. You just can't tear them apart and put the children in one place and the mom in another place. And I said, no, we can't have it that way. We have to have a place that women and their children can come to be safe.
So, Luann, tell us a little bit. So now we have a shelter, and how many years have we had this shelter now?
Well, the shelter itself opened in 1979.
Okay.
So it's a little less than 40 years.
40 years.
But the program has been 40 years.
Right, because before you had a shelter. And we've had several shelters, and we now have one that is very, very good and very safe and very modern. And Luann, tell us a little bit about how the shelter operates and what happens.
Well, as you stated, this is only our 4th location. So that speaks a lot to the YW's ability to keep women safe and the perpetrators away. So the way that it works is we can house up to 20 women, children, and male victims, actually. We get referrals from DSS, the police department, hospitals, other social service agencies, and they come into our facility, which is staffed 24 hours, 7 days a week, and receive any service that they need, whether it's food, clothing, hygiene products, referrals to other agencies, assistance. We actually will assist them at DSS. We go to court with our victims on a regular basis. So we will provide whatever services are necessary that will enable them to move on and remain safe, whatever that means for them.
Good. Now you mentioned, and I think you mentioned that the police help, and that wasn't always the case, was it, Mary?
No. One of the things we encountered was when the police were asked to come, they would say things like to the women, well, he's your husband, what do you expect? Or they'd say, well, why don't you just go for a walk around the block till he cools off a little? Or, has he been drinking? And sometimes alcohol wasn't even involved. And the interesting thing was that these women that were calling for help were not just from one social economic level. We had people from the college calling. We had people from some of the better neighborhoods around Schenectady in the suburbs calling. It ran across all social economic classes.
And I assume it still does. And Doretha, you're a caseworker. Could you explain what that role is a little bit?
Well, being a DSS case manager, like Mary says, I deal with clients from different cultural backgrounds, economical backgrounds. So what I do is when they do come into the shelter, I sit down and I go over the DSS apps, and I help them sometimes if there is a cultural problem. We'll use a translator if there's one available. Just recently, we had a client who was Mandarin come in.
Oh my word.
So, and I have to say, she is such a blessing. She has been getting the services that she needs. We've been working with a translator from Schenectady Community College who has been able to translate for us, as well as her pastor, okay? And she's also able to use her phone to use the Google Translator app.
Yes.
So we've been doing that. And, you know, it's time consuming, but just to be able to help her is what counts. And so, like I said, when it comes to the women that come in, you know, we get them from different backgrounds, and our goal is to make sure that their needs are being met. If it's a cultural problem, then we go to whatever measures it'll be to make sure that they understand the DSS, make sure that the needed resources are being met. And as when it comes to the DSS process, we do notify DSS if they do need translators, so they can have that assistance there too.
I think that's interesting, the fact that what that shows in this community, how the community has changed with the fact of needing translators and different cultural aspects, because I think earlier on we were fairly homogeneous, and so there wasn't that need for all those little extra services, which I find very interesting, and it's like the changing of the times. Tell us a little more, Luann, about other aspects of the program. I understand you provide counseling services and other types of services for the women.
We do. We have a domestic violence counselor who actually comes to our facility several days a week. We have a spiritual group that takes place at the shelter. We have Therapy Dogs International are kind enough to visit our facility every month. Yeah. And that is obviously a big hit with the women and the children.
So what crosses my mind next is, and it goes back to having children in the shelter, what happens to them with regard to school and those kinds of things? I mean, they just sit in the shelter, or?
I think something that, our pioneer women really paved the way for us to be able to work so well and so closely with all of the other human service agencies and the school districts and whatnot, because we are very fortunate in that, for the most part, the other agencies are aware of what domestic violence is and understand the dynamics. And so they will work with us, whether it's transporting the child to their home school district, or with our children's case manager, we'll get them established in a new school. Whatever we need to do basically to keep the family safe, but also try to maintain some sense
stability
of normalcy for these kids.
A stable lifestyle for them.
Right.
Now, we talked about them going to school and that. Did I hear you say you have men in the program?
Yes.
That's a change.
It is a huge change. We have, always worked with male victims.
Yes.
In one capacity or another, but there is a new federal law that mandates that, domestic violence facilities need to accommodate them in their shelters. And we've been doing it for a couple of years now. So we provide them with the same services that
excellent.
that we do for females.
Because I think that lots of times it's important to lift that up, because people do not think in terms of men being battered, abused, there being any domestic violence against men. The fragile woman, of course, that we can understand, so to speak.
Right, and the overwhelming majority of domestic violence victims are females, of course, but absolutely we do need to acknowledge the fact that males are victims
and
also, as well as, in same-sex relationships.
So I've repeatedly spoken about Domestic Violence Month. What is Domestic Violence Month, and how did that come to be?
Domestic Violence Awareness Month is in October, of course. I honestly have no idea why October was chosen, but throughout the state and worldwide, agencies do a lot to promote it for the month. We have quite a few things that we do every year to promote that awareness to the community, such as for the 4th year in a row, we've had a Zumbathon event.
Zumbathon? What is a Zumbathon? Yes, okay. What is a Zumbathon?
The hip way to exercise.
Oh, really?
Yes.
With music and...
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Well, you know.
Choreographed dances, that type
Oh,
of thing.
wow.
So we just had that this
So
past
is that a
weekend.
fundraiser?
It is
type
a
of-
fundraiser,
I
and
see.
it started because of a family of a mother and daughter who were murdered as a result of
through
domestic
domestic
violence.
violence.
The McCormicks, yes.
Mm.
So they got together with us, and they wanted to help, bring about awareness to
That's
this
excellent.
very real problem. So they've been instrumental in helping us with that, and it's been very successful. It's a great, fun community way to bring about that awareness. In addition, every year we have a Take Back the Night event. So that's taking place on this coming Thursday, the 22nd.
Everyone can come to that?
Anyone can come to that.
And
We
what
welcome
happens with
everybody.
that?
We have a couple of different speakers that, will this year, the mayor, the police chief, a councilwoman, is going to be there to, again, bring about awareness and
Excellent.
talk about the support that exists in Schenectady County. And then we have a pretty quick walk throughout downtown Schenectady with bullhorns and chants. And
Excellent.
we encourage people from other businesses and other agencies to bring their signs, show support. It's to bring awareness for domestic violence and sexual assault. So
And when is this again?
it's this Thursday,
Oh, this
October
week.
22nd. Yes,
Oh,
in 2 days.
well, you got in just in
I
time.
know.
Y'all come to this.
Starting at 5:30.
All right. And it starts from where?
It's the YWCA 44 Washington Ave.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Uh-huh. Well, and anything, what else are you doing? Something about bras or...
Oh, yes. Breast cancer awareness, of course, is October also. So we have a project where people can decorate bras. Again, just a fun way to bring about awareness to a very serious event. We
And T-shirts? Do you still do the
We haven't done T-shirts in a few years. We were trying to spruce it up the past
Tell us a
few
little
years.
bit about the shirts, though, because that was very effective.
The T-shirts were. How long did you guys do anything like that?
No, a lot of this, we were just struggling
Yeah.
our main struggle was making people aware that this existed. For instance, there was one lady on the board who,
yes.
when we said we were going to take battered women and work with them, pregnant teens with work with them, she just stood right up and she said, in the YWCA, this is my place to come and swim, and this is my place to come and do my flowering.
Flower.
I can have no part of this anymore. And she literally walked off the board,
Well,
So we were just struggling to bring the program.
And there
We
was
didn't
a
get that far.
different culture for the
Yes.
YWCA at that time, and the membership was not as varied as it is now, and so that's the flower shows and the tea parties, and that was the extent of what they were, and dancing. And dancing was a big thing, and so I come shortly, not far behind Mary with regard to having been board member, and so I remember the tea parties and the, but it phased out, which is kind of exciting. And one of the things I'm proud about being involved with the YW is that they stay with the times.
Yes.
And they're right on the cutting edge, and this is very good. We're no longer doing flower shows are nice, but we're no longer. We've moved on. Anything else you'd like to share about your work? Maybe share a story. Maybe of one of your. I love the story you shared about Mandarin, but do you have another story you might like to share?
Yeah. Most of all, I would just like to say is I'm an encourager. So I love to encourage our ladies that their first step that they did was to leave that abusive relationship. So I applaud them for that, and work with them to accomplish their goals. So I'm much more than a DSS case manager.
I understand.
One of my stories is there was one of our ladies, she came in and she was so excited after a while about going for her GED. So she signed up for classes and she started studying. And then when it came time for her to start to take her essay, she had failed a couple. So she came to me and she said, "Miss Doretha, could you please help me with my essay?"
Excellent.
So I began to take time out every day and work with her on her writing. And a couple months after that, she had left us and she had went into our main building. And I was so proud to hear that. About a month after that, she got her GED.
All right.
So that was one of my success stories. I was so happy to hear about that. And she came to me, she hugged me, she came back to let me know, and she thanked me. So I get a lot of that. A lot of the ladies do come to me and say, I thank you for your help. Thank you for encouraging me.
Right.
So, that enough, that's like so rewarding, just to hear those words, to just hear that you are making a difference.
I can understand that. So, Mary, what do you think about where your little plan, your little idea, that germ that was planted, what do you think of the outcome?
Well, I'm telling you, I wish Helen Carini and Kay Hagbaum, Kay Raycroft could be with me again. They were my mentors because I was just this young mom and just knew that this was going on in the community, and just stunned by the fact that so many people didn't even believe that this happened. And then the struggle to get it off the ground, because a lot of the women financially, and I'm sure this is probably still true, could not afford to be away from their husband or their mate, or, because, and they would just, the person would come, give them a big song and dance, and back they'd go, back into the situation. And it was really a hard way to come away from that, and I'm just so pleased every time I wear my purple, because that's another thing we do.
We all have our purple on today. Yes.
We wear our purple in October, Domestic Violence Month. And just to think how many people, we've really helped to move on to becoming themselves.
Luann, what if listeners know of someone, or maybe themselves need to have this service, or need to have some help in breaking this pattern? How would they contact you?
They can call our 24-hour hotline, which is 374-3386. And anyone can call that number regardless if they need shelter, if they need someone to just listen to them, if they need counseling, advocacy, any of the services that we offer, they're welcome to call that number. It takes a lot, as Doretha mentioned, for someone to leave, and it's 7 to 11 times the average that they will go back to that person for various reasons. So we understand that, and we are really supportive of whatever decisions they make. So we encourage everybody, if you or somebody that's a victim, the most important thing that you can do is listen to that person, validate them, don't judge, because even in 2015 there's still a lot of judgment around domestic violence. Why do they stay? Why do they go back? What did they do to deserve it? Things of that nature. There's still those myths and misconceptions that it may be, drug related or alcohol related because of mental illness, and none of those things are true. So, encourage people to seek out services and assistance. We don't require them to report anything to the police if they choose not to. We're really there to give them support, encouragement, and keep them safe.
Thank you. Well, is there anything else that you would like to add that we haven't covered, something that you've thought of? Now, men use the same number also, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Quite a bit of what I do in my role as the shelter coordinator is go out into the community and do trainings and education. So we are, I encourage anybody to invite us to your school, your place of work, your place of worship, so that we can, again, just get the word out, provide the information of what services we offer, and encourage people to seek services.
And that's really important. And maybe you need to give your number one more time.
Absolutely.
If someone's looking for a speaker. That lots of times people say, "Gee, we got this program. We don't know who to."
Right.
Here
right.
you are.
It's
Yeah.
518-374-3386 is our 24-hour hotline.
And to get you, you say hotline, but what if they just want someone to come as a speaker? Is there a different?
It's still the same number.
Okay.
Yes.
Just checking. Just checking.
Thank you.
Well, I'm just so pleased that it's unfortunate that we still have to have the service, but I'm so pleased that it has expanded into the length that it has and the degree that it has. And it's obvious that the two of you are really committed to this program and really understand the needs of these women and men who suffer terribly, and the fact that you help them and empower them to be strong enough to leave that situation and provide them a safe haven so they can begin to grow and get their life together. And I think that's admirable. And I just appreciate the fact that you're here. And Mary, do you have any last words that?
No, it just, it's funny because when we first would talk to people about this, they'd say, well, okay, we'll give you so much money, almost saying, well, it'll be over with soon, and it's not. In fact, the one article that I brought, and the date on the article is December 4th, 1979, and in it is the same exact kinds of issues we're still dealing with. I'm sorry to say that battered women still have to have a place to get help, and it's still an issue, and it still needs to, be accepted that this is an issue that needs to be worked on.
Mary, we have one more thing, and we've got a couple of minutes. What in the world is this strip with all these buttons?
I love, for instance, my most favorite is my pin from the International Year of the Woman, and it is an absolutely beautifully designed pin. It's a dove, but the dove's tail has an equal sign because the International Year of the Woman, 1975, we were working for the women's rights equal amendment, and we still
Never
don't have
passed.
it. And it still isn't passed. In it, too, is the symbol for a woman, and you can see this is my United Nations 1975 International Year of the Woman, and there's that same symbol with the equal sign for equal rights for women, which we still don't have. And this was I was allowed to vote because I was representing the American Association of University Women. And here you can see some of the fundraiser pins that
You might
we
want to
used.
hold that up. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, thank
This
you.
this one's my favorite. Never another battered woman. Don't I wish that could be true? This is another one. No woman should live in fear. To violence against women, respond. So those are some of my favorite ones. And this one, of course, ERA, all people are created equal. And that's the one that I really wish that we had.
And on that note, I want to thank each and every one of you for being here with me this afternoon, for the information you've provided. And it's obvious that this was a worthwhile endeavor. Mary, you must be so proud.
I am thrilled.
And,
Thank you.
that's legacy stuff.
Yes.
And so thank you for everything. And do come again sometime.
Thank you both.
Thank you. Thank you.